The annual report of your American company is a corporate form that you normally have to complete once a year, directly on the state's website. This report contains various information, such as the name of the company, the address of the company, the name and mailing address of the directors or managers, the name, title, and mailing address of the officers. However, the name and address of the shareholders of a corporation or members of an LLC are almost never required. The name of the annual report varies by state and type of entity. Here are some names: Annual Certificate, Annual Franchise Tax Report, Annual List of Managers or Members, Annual List of Officers, Annual Registration Report, Annual Renewal Report, Annual Report, Biannual Occupation Tax Report, Biannual Report, Biannual Statement, Business Entity Report, Decennial Report, Periodic Report, Public Information Report, Statement of Information, and 2-year report. The obligation to file an annual report varies according to the nature of the legal entities and the states. For example, in Delaware and Arizona, the obligation to file an annual report is imposed only on corporations. In Oklahoma, the opposite is true. Only LLCs must file this report. In Alabama, there is no requirement for corporations or LLCs to file an annual report. However, some corporate information is required in their tax return. The filing frequency of the annual report varies according to the nature of the legal entities and the states. In some states, the annual report must be filed no later than the company's anniversary date. For a domestic company created in the state, the anniversary date is the date of its creation. For a foreign company created in another state, the anniversary date is the date of its registration in the state's corporate register. For example, your company was created on January 8, 2020. Therefore, you must file its annual report no later than January 8, 2021. In other states, the annual report must be filed no later than the end of the month of the company's anniversary date. For example, your company was created on March 14, 2020. You will therefore have to file its annual report no later than March 31, 2021. In other states, the annual report must be filed no later than the last day of the month preceding the company's anniversary date. For example, your company was created on February 7, 2020. You will therefore have to file its annual report no later than January 31, 2021. In other states, this filing takes place at the latest on a fixed date. For example, in Delaware, the annual corporation report must be filed by March 1st of every year. In other states, the annual report is required within a fixed period of time following the end of the company's financial year. For example, your company has a December 31st year end. If the law requires the annual report within 3 months of the end of that fiscal year, the annual report must be filed no later than March 31st of the following year. In other states, the annual report must be filed within the quarter relating to the company's anniversary date. For example, your company was created on January 15, 2020. You will therefore have to file its annual report between January 1st and March 31st, 2021. Finally, in other states, the corporate report must be filed not on an annual basis, but rather every 2 years. For example, your company was created on January 15, 2020 in New York State. You will therefore have to file its first biennial statement no later than January 31st, 2022. In Pennsylvania, the corporate report must be filed every 10 years. If your U.S. company fails to file its annual report within the statutory deadline, it automatically ceases to be in compliance, referred to as good standing. This prevents it from initiating legal proceedings or bidding on public projects. If your company fails to file its annual report for 2 years in the state where it was created, it is automatically dissolved in most states. If your company fails to file its annual report for 2 years in the state where it obtained the authorization to do business, its entry on the company register is automatically deleted in most states. It is generally possible to revive the dissolved company or the registration of the foreign company by filing all missing annual reports and paying government fees, as well as interest and penalties. Finally, here are 3 points you should remember. Point 1. Do not confuse the annual report with the tax return of the company. The annual report is only a corporate report and generally has no relationship to the company's revenues. Point 2. In the annual report, it is recommended that the address of your company be indicated as the correspondence address for each director and officer. In general, you should avoid giving the residential addresses of the directors and officers of your U.S. company, since the information provided in the annual report is normally publicly available. Point 3. Some states require that you indicate the EIN, Employer Identification Number, of your company in its annual report. Many of these states allow easy access to annual reports and even display the company's EIN on their website. This poses a clear risk of corporate identity theft.